Hey, hey! Nope. Welcome to episode 173 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Yes, you saw a sneak peek of my guest right there, but I didn't intend for her to come on quite yet. So she's backstage. Anyway, I before we or as we start, I would like you to consider the question. What does overall wellness mean to you? What does overall wellness mean to you? To me, this is such an important question because I spent much of my life feeling I had a good life, but I spent much of it feeling out of balance and miserably stressed and not well in one area or another. So my guest today, she's devoted her life to helping people find their way to overall wellness. So I'm so excited to talk with her. And yeah, you'll be amazed to meet her. And she'll be on in a minute. But first, this.
Today's guest, Jill Haas.
Hey, welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm still Jason Freeman. I still have a speech impediment. Let me tell you a little bit about Jill. Jill is an integrative wellness practitioner. What a cool name, an integrative wellness practitioner. She helps her clients cultivate emotional and physical wellness in a variety of ways. Part of what Jill does is help people move through trauma and major blocks that stand between them and experiencing what they most want in life. Please help me welcome Jill to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Hey,
Hey,
welcome, Jill.
hi. It's so good to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. Happy Valentine's Day to you and everyone listening.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
So I like to start my guests off sometimes talking about being a kid. If I had known you at age 7 or 8, what would you have been interested in?
Ooh, age 7 or 8. Probably horses.
What 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 do you love about horses?
Well, I didn't have any growing up, but I always wanted one. So I had like a Barbie horse. I had, posters. I had all that kind of stuff. But what did I love about them? They were just majestic. I mean, okay, in my 7-year-old brain, I don't think I used the words majestic. So let me find a different word. I think I just thought they were beautiful and that I always thought that riding a horse was super cool. And that was one of the things I really just wanted to do. So if I found a friend that had horses or found out a friend had horses, I was like, oh, can I please meet your horse?
Do you remember the first time you rode a horse?
No, not really. I think my parents took me on some of those little like lead along things when I was a kid. I kind of remember that, but I do have a memory that I can share that's kind of a funny, not funny, but it's like when I was in 3rd grade, I think. I can tell the story. I don't know if you want me to though.
Oh, please.
So I guess how old are you when you're in 3rd grade? I guess you're like 10? No, maybe you're not that old. Well, anyway, I was living in an apartment with my parents or a condo or something, and I used to have to walk to school. And one day walking,
And what city were you living in?
I was in Sterling Heights, Michigan, I think at the time. It all kind of blends together. We moved around a lot.
Cool. Okay,
So,
continue with your story.
oh yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry. I can talk a lot, Jason. So you're gonna have to stop me. So I remember walking to school or home from school one day, and I saw a horse kind of tied up in a little area, but it wasn't like I think someone left it there. I don't know if someone left it there hoping someone else would pick it up, and I don't know if something was wrong with it. It looked like maybe it was pregnant, but I was too young to really know the difference. But I remember this horse and I would visit it every day after school. I don't remember how many days it was there, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. And I brought kids from school to go see this horse, and then I was having them ride this horse, and it was tied up there. It wasn't going anywhere. And I don't know that I told my mom about it because I thought I'd get in trouble.
Hmm.
That's just one of the fun horse stories I remember as a kid, like getting these other kids on this horse that wasn't even mine.
Life has so much mystery. I wonder why the horse was there.
I still wonder to this day because after I had started doing that and I was all excited, like, ooh, there's this horse, then it was gone. Never knew anything about it.
Huh.
Maybe somebody listening is from Michigan in that area. Well, of course, that was when I was, 10-ish years old. Maybe they know.
That'd be funny if someone commented, "Oh yeah, yeah."
Yeah, that would be funny. Talk about a synchronicity. That would be huge.
So were there any events in your childhood that are pivotal to you doing the work you do now?
Hmm. Well, I guess that's kind of a loaded question. So there wasn't like one big moment where I can say that I remember I've got to do this kind of work. You've probably heard the term "he teaches that which he most needs to learn." I think that's why I dove into the work that I do. And um, growing up, we moved around a lot, as I mentioned. And when you move around a lot, one thing happens. Even if you're an extroverted person, which I think I was, I lost a lot of friends because we moved around so much. We moved out of state, we moved to different schools, and sometimes we would do it like in 2 years. So I didn't have friends that would travel with me. And then when you're young in school and going from school to school without, you don't have your support system of friends, it gets kind of lonely. So that's my assessment as to what happened to me. As I became very low self-esteem. I had low self-esteem, low confidence. I started to not like myself. And by the time I was 17-ish years old or so, I didn't want to be here on this earth anymore. Now, I didn't have a plan necessarily to do anything about it, but I did write a letter and expressed how horrible I thought the world was and that I should just die. Like I was kind of wishing I'd be hit by a bus or something. I wasn't taking any risky steps and doing those things like stepping in front of one or anything, but I was in a lot of emotional pain and I think I just wanted someone to take it away.
So what would you say to a young person who might be listening who is in a situation where they have to move around a lot with their family?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. Because obviously, when you're a kid, you can't control what your parents do. You can only try to influence them with, please, no, let's not go. I guess what I can say is that the thing I learned out of it for sure on the other side is that there are so many gifts in learning how to stand on your own 2 feet and be
Hmm.
autonomous and to gain confidence and doing the steps it takes to find the confidence. But at the same time, someone might be listening and thinking like, well, yeah, great. I'm in that place right now that I don't feel confident. And so you're just saying I got to wait sometime later and I'll figure it out. And, because I didn't really have tools when I was younger to even know what was going on. It wasn't until things started coming to a head when I was, 17, 18, 19, 20, and so on, that it just grew into this big, like, ball of emotion that seemed to be a burden for quite some time. But I guess what I would say is you don't stuff down your feelings and you let someone know who cares that you're struggling, that you don't keep it to yourself. Cause that's one thing I didn't know who to tell or who to talk to or what to do. And your friends who you think are your friends, they won't know what to do about it either. So when I say talk to someone, I mean like your parents, your caregivers, trusted people, if you feel safe to share your emotions with them. And then find out there's so many resources now that kids can tap into on the internet. There's so many good resources out there. Teen programs, there's a lot of those things available to help kids reconnect with each other, to learn how to like themselves, that kind of thing. So those are my first thoughts about it.
It, it's nice that there's more and more out there for teens and kids, and at the same time, what you're talking about, that stuffing down the emotions and trying to do it all by ourselves, that's so that's so tempting. And I almost want to say in this culture, but I don't know, maybe it's tempting in any culture to try and do it ourselves. What? Why does healing often not work well in a silo of trying to do it all ourselves?
That's a great question. And I think there's a lot that we can do ourselves. We can even get a foundation for trying to figure out what we're feeling. So there's a lot of things you can do, but I think what happens is we can't do it all ourselves. So we think we can do it all ourselves and we can't. We can only get so far and then we kind of plateau. And we need someone on the outside to help us understand what's going on with us. And maybe they don't even need to understand what we've been through specifically. They don't even have to have experienced the same thing. But for someone to be a sounding board on the outside of your ego and to help you gain some different perspectives that you're not going to get on your own without like some provocative questioning or something to help you get deeper insights with yourself. So, for example, people, when they try to do it themselves, when I say they plateau, what happens is we all have a subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind holds these programs in them that drive our behaviors. It drives how we do things, how we react to what people say. So many programs. We have thousands of them running our lives every day. So when we bump up against some of those programs that we're trying to change, like, say maybe someone overeats chocolate cake whenever it's around. They just can't stop themselves from eating all the chocolate cake. Well, there's a behavior there that they want to change. And if there's a coping strategy with it that's linked and it's a soothing mechanism of some sort, and you try to change that, you'll be able to get so far, but you'll get to that root program where it's like, no, 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 this is a survival system that we've got in place. And we don't want to, you don't want to change that. So it's going to do whatever it can to stop that person from changing that program. So when you're on your own, you aren't going to really know when that program's getting, kind of defaulting. And well, you can know when you start working on yourself and you really start to know how this goes and you're actually sitting down with a process for yourself. I'll tell you what happens to me. You get distracted and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to go change the laundry. Oh, I got to go let the dogs out. Oh, I got to go call my friend. And then hours later, you're like, oh, I was sitting here working on this thing for myself, personal development, and I forgot all about it. How convenient. Well, that's what the mind wants us to do when we start getting close to those deeper programs.
So, sometimes when the program is so enmeshed, I experienced this. You get to a point where, oh, there's chocolate cake in the room. I always eat all the cake when it's there. It's just how I am, and we get to a point we take it for granted and almost defend it as part of who we are. I'm the one who eats all the chocolate cake, and it's like, why would I defend that? But
Yeah, that's a really great point. You're so right. You're so right. We get very attached to our problems, even like a problem that would be even way worse than that. Chocolate cake, I mean, that's pretty benign. I mean, depending if you're a diabetic and you shouldn't be having all that sugar, and then you've also been on a weight loss plan. Well, nobody's going to die from eating that chocolate cake, but it's not good for you. But there are other behaviors that are probably more detrimental, and sometimes we do get really attached to them.
so so what do you do when a client comes to you experiencing some behavior they find troublesome, but they're like, Joe Marie, I can't change.
What do I do?
Yeah, I mean, how do you help them see that change is maybe possible?
Oh, yeah. So, well, oftentimes when I start to work with anybody, I first find out if they're even coachable, because not everybody is. Not everybody wants to change,
What
right?
does being coachable mean?
It's a great question. So being coachable is being willing to take suggestions and follow along. And not that coaching is not about advice giving, but there is a time and a place for advice when you have rapport with a person that you're working with. But it's more about being able to receive suggestion and being willing to step back, be judgment free about yourself, about the world, and be curious and allow yourself to see things from a different place. And it can be hard, especially if someone is really, like you were saying, they're really identifying with that chocolate cake eating behavior. And this is who I am. And I'm the person that does this. There could be some resistance there to changing that. And that's pretty common for anyone who's, jumping into working with a coach or doing something different. We all run into resistance somewhere along the way. It just depends on how strong the resistance is. So if someone has some real strong resistance right out the gate, it's going to be really hard to work with them.
What would you advise someone who feels really resistant but still is like, hey, I want to make a change. I'm just really resistant. I just really want that chocolate cake.
Well, in that case, I mean, everybody usually wants to make the change consciously. And sometimes they don't know why they're so attached to it. So when I'm with clients, we work on what is the root cause. What's really the problem? Because eating the chocolate cake is really just a symptom. It's not the problem. They think it's the problem, and people will always come to me in a session or in a package of sessions or whatever, or in a group, and they'll like say, well, my problem is this, and they're pretty certain that that's what it is. Some people have done a lot of personal development, and they're like, well, I know I have a problem with this, I don't know what it is, I know I need to change something, I don't know what it is. So everyone's comes from a different place, and you just meet them where they are. So when someone's dealing with a lot of resistance, say like within a session, we don't just push against and say, well, here are the suggestions, here's the action steps that you came up with, you just go do them. Well, that's not going to work, because if someone's already feeling resistance, right, they're not going to want to follow the steps. So we have to get to what's going on. And so going back to when I was saying, when I first meet somebody to find out if they're coachable, I go through a process to just determine what is it that they want now, and what's keeping them from that, and finding out, of course, what other things they've tried. But that gives us an idea of, here are some things that are going on that are bothering them, and then I can ask some more questions to get a little bit deeper. And then when we actually start working in the processes and resistance does show up, because usually people aren't going to be resistant if they want to work at a session, they're going to definitely try. They're going to show up. They're not going to spend the money to just sit there and say, well, I'm not changing, Jill. Good luck. Where's your magic wand? Because I don't have one. I just want to tell you right now, I don't have one. I wish I did sometimes, but I don't. But yeah, so in the session, when resistance comes up, and it looks so different for everybody, and even the same person can have resistance that shows up differently for them, depending on what we're working on. How locked down is that thing that is there that is driving the behavior. So part of it is really like asking a lot of questions around it and getting to the root of what it is. So like I said, chocolate cake is a symptom. So we want to find out, well, what's behind that? Or underneath? What's really driving that chocolate cake behavior? So there's just questions you might ask, like, when's the first time you can remember ever having that chocolate cake situation? And what was going on around that time? You could also ask, like, what's the feeling that happens right before you do it? And let's trace that feeling back to the first time you remember feeling that feeling. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we could do.
You mentioned provocative questions a little bit ago. What is a provocative question, and how is it useful, I guess?
Yeah, so provocative questions, that's a great question. And that is asking questions, deep questions that really get someone to think. So it's not just, hey, Jason, how's the weather? Oh, how do you like the weather? Is it feeling good today?
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
I've
Okay.
been inside all day.
Okay.
But
Oh,
but it's a great illustration because that conversation based on that question wouldn't really go anywhere.
right, exactly. Right. And so that's what we call like surface conversation, is just like chit chat about the weather, or, how's your dog doing? Or, so we want to, I should say as a coach, for me, it's important to go and find, what's the deeper things so we can get to those root issues, right? You got to go deep to find the roots. So there are a lot of people out there that will do surface coaching, and they do it really quickly, and they maybe they're more of an accountability coach, and they're like, okay, so what you got going on? What do you need to do this week? What are you going to do next week? Okay, what do you think your barriers are going to be? Okay, great. So write all that down, and we'll check back in and see how you did. So to me, that is very surface coaching. And so the real deeper coaching would be like, someone comes back and they were supposed to do A, B, and C, but they did only A, and B and C didn't get done. And maybe they had all the time in the world, but they were like, I don't know, I just couldn't make myself do it. It's like, well, the deeper coaching would be, let's dive into what happened. What was the breakdown? What did you notice? What was happening? Did you try it? Asking those deeper questions. But even more so, it's not just getting deep. It's asking questions in a way that really make a person think.
In a
And like
way
here,
that what? Asking questions in a way that what?
that really makes a person think deeply, so that they're not accessing spontaneous answers that are rote or automatic, right? We want them to search for the answer and get something that they've never thought of before, and get a new perspective that never has come to them before. And it's like one question that I love, and I ask this often in my sessions, and that is, what's a good reason to keep this problem? And most of the time, people, if they've never worked with me before, will say, Jill, there's no good reason to keep this problem. There isn't. Oh, but there is. Like, let's just pretend there is a good reason. What might it be? Well, then sometimes there's a lot of resistance around that one. I mean, like, let's take the chocolate cake. We could go, well, it tastes good. I don't want to not eat chocolate cake. If you're going to change this, am I going to never eat chocolate cake again? Because that's not what I want. It's like, well, then what do you want? And that's the other thing, is you have to get really clear on what the person wants specifically. So as far as what I do, I'm not here to just like take away your desires or your fun, or I'm here to just help you with whatever you want help with. But whatever that may be.
So once you've had chocolate conversations around chocolate cake with the client, and you've kind of uncovered the backstory, and the client goes, "Ah, yeah, that's why I crave chocolate cake when it's around." Is that insight enough to help a client change behaviors, or what happens
Mm.
then?
That's a really good question. Sometimes I think when we have an awareness around something, it can do a big shift for us. Sometimes it might take it away completely. I think oftentimes, depending on how deeply ingrained it is, it could still be overpowering. But then the good news is you've got awareness around it, so you can catch yourself when it happens and go, "Oh, I'm doing that thing again. Interesting. Now I'm gonna get real curious." Like this is where you want to get real curious when you have that awareness, like, wow, and then really tune into your body. What's happening within me right now? What are the thoughts that are popping up? What am I feeling? Did I have a memory that showed up with this too? Like sometimes we can't access that right away, but usually there is something there.
Speaking of awareness, thanks for the segue. You found me, which was awesome, and invited me to be on a HSP summit, which is a highly sensitive person summit. So what is a highly sensitive person?
Mm. Well, there is actually studies done that it's HSP or highly sensitive person or high sensory processing, a person with high sensory processing trait. So it's a trait, and it makes up about 20-ish% of the world's population, people who have this trait. So I'm not an expert in HSP. I am a highly sensitive person by the trait, and I didn't know I was until probably 10 years ago. So it's not like I grew up knowing all of this. I knew something was going on. I knew I was different. I thought I knew I was different. And then I was trying to just like, oh, I must be, I'm wackadoodle. I'm not like everybody else. I need to fit in and start conforming or whatever. That's what I remember thinking. And that's probably where a lot of that low confidence came from too.
So looking back on your time as a kid, what were some signs or some specific memories that you can look back and go, oh, yeah, that was me being highly sensitive. That makes sense now.
Yeah, yeah. Some of it is I was really connected to people's thoughts and behaviors. Like I could tell what they were thinking. Maybe I didn't know like the words, but I knew their intentions. Sometimes they weren't good intentions. But they were things that I knew that, and I also felt like I was really good at connecting with people in a deep emotional way, energetically. And I didn't know how I did it, but I knew I could use it to my advantage when it came to needing something as a kid, wanting something. You could call it manipulation, but there was some way I did it, and I can't even really put into words how I did that right now. I'd have to really think about that. But I remember like that thing. Oh, and then another one is a really deep connection with animals, like really, like just not just an affinity for animals, but like I could, again, another, like I could tell what they were thinking and feeling. It seemed like I could communicate with them without um, trying, if that makes sense. Those are
So
specific.
what you're describing is different than how we might usually think of high sensitivity. Like often we think of it as more sensitive to sensation, like
Mhm.
fluorescent lights or
Yes.
any or loud concert or something.
Yep. That's all part of it too, for sure.
So would you kind of describe the what are the dimensions? What falls under high sensitivity? This is not a great question, but
That's okay. I think I follow you. So there's actually a quiz or a self-assessment that anyone can do. That it's called go to the website HS for highly sensitive person. So it's hsperson.com. And it's a self-assessment on there. I think it's maybe 30 statements, and you just check the boxes as to what applies to you. And a lot of it is about lights, sounds, scents. Like that was another thing. I was always very I could smell. I would call myself. I'd have the bionic nose. I could smell everything. And that was not always a good thing. So I work. I'm a nurse. I don't practice anymore. But being a nurse in the hospital with a bionic nose, no
Oh my
bueno.
gosh.
No bueno.
Oh my gosh. Did that seriously really was that really distracting to you?
I had to learn a skill where I would block off my nose and not be able to smell, and that was a habit. I would just always have this, it's like a muscle that I can't explain it, but I would just block it off and I would just walk around, and I guess you could call it mouth breathing a little bit, but I wasn't looking like, but I was subtly doing breathing through my mouth so I couldn't smell anything because it was pretty overpowering often, especially in certain cases. Yeah. I just had some memories pop up thinking about that.
Okay, so moving on from those memories. Moving on. So beyond being highly sensitive in terms of the senses, how like you described some other ways you were highly sensitive as a young person. How would they be described generally? Like
So,
if
oh, go
yeah,
ahead. You finished.
like if someone really is attuned with other people or has a sense of other people, like how would you describe that side of high sensitivity?
I would say highly intuitive, deeply empathic, very connected to their own emotions and sometimes others' emotions, like feeling very deeply. And it's not just all the bad stuff. So a lot of people think like, oh, feeling so deeply, you're just going to be depressed and sad all the time. It's like, no, there's a deep, like a rich inner world that happens for highly sensitive people where you're maybe very visual inside. Your experiences are very real inside. You might even be able to conjure up a whole movie in your mind and just go there and be there. So there is, it's like I said, a very you experience like the highs and lows of emotions, but it's like the good stuff can be just really, really good. And the bad stuff can be really, really bad. And you just feel it. Not every HSP person is, or a highly sensitive person, not everyone has that. I would say that they're all deeply empathetic, but I think they're all different. Everybody's different. There's also something else which I have just learned. The term is called high sensation seeking, that some people who are highly sensitive also have a trait that's called high sensation seeking. There's actually a quiz on that same website, the hsperson.com, that you can do that for yourself too and find out if that's you. And I thought when I first heard it that it was more about, you want to jump out of a plane in a parachute and do like high risk behaviors and get a rush with your adrenaline. And that's what I first thought when I heard that. But it's actually more me, like so what I was thinking, like, that can't be me. But I did the assessment. And I'm like, okay, I didn't score super high on it, but I did score to fit into the category of being high sensation seeking. One of it that fits me is always have to be learning, always want to learn, get bored easy, want to dive into all kinds of new programs and things like building a summit, for example, and really diving in deep into that and learning new skills. And yeah, so that's like high sensation seeking in a way that I wouldn't have thought.
So if someone goes to the website and takes the test and finds out that they either one of both is that just kind of like having like just like, oh, now I have the thing, what can you do with this knowledge?
Well, I think what it does for a lot of people who, especially who have found out older, later in life, like I did, it really helps validate who you were as a child and helps you to accept yourself even more now. So I think a lot of us, highly sensitive people, have hidden our skills, gifts, talents, whatever you want to call them, like the intuitiveness. Or we've been told that, well, you don't know what you're talking about. How could you possibly know that? Or being told that you're just too sensitive and you need to suck it up and be a little bit tougher. And so then some people do learn because they, felt like they didn't have a choice. They turn off their emotions and they become colder or less in tune. And those are the gifts and natural parts about highly sensitive people and having those emotions and deep, rich experiences of life. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing, even though some people might say, "Oh, now I'm highly sensitive." Like it doesn't have a negative connotation unless you make it that. It actually is quite beautiful, if you ask me, but I might be biased.
Your nose example is wonderful for this because you basically could shut out that sensation when you were working in the hospital as a nurse, but and being able to do that helped you do your job, but then you wouldn't want to shut off your nose to all the smells ever because there's some beautiful smells.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
how does someone with these things start to grasp the idea of creating boundaries sometimes and then sometimes enjoying the gift of the skill
Yeah. I think that's
instead
a
of turning it either all off or all on.
right. Yeah, yeah, and I think that, just as human beings, we tend to go all in sometimes with something because it's just easier to not have to try to navigate and figure it out. And, as a kid, if you were told you were too sensitive and you shut your skills and gifts off, you can get them back. They are still part of you. So navigating it really is a matter of first acknowledging that this is who you are, and then how you apply the skills, gifts, and talents. It's where you have to find out for you what those are first, and then if are they overactive in some area or underactive in an area, and then find out the balance. So it's kind of hard for me to speak like generally, uh, but I'm trying to think of an example here. Like you mentioned me and I have like I called it my nursing skill, which was blocking off my nose. But I didn't do that all the time. But it does come in handy when you're, cleaning up things in the home from your pets. You know what I mean? It does come in handy. So it's not like I did it all the time, but I do understand what you're saying, I think, and that is that some people may have completely shut off like their emotions or their sensitivity and just became cold. And um so, like, how to get that back, it would be, finding out where you shut it off, and also having that you have to start with the desire to bring it back, and if there's fear associated with that, then you're gonna wanna not quell the fear, but find out what that fear is so you can feel more empowered instead. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And maybe some people feel like they need to create a boundary sometimes, like they don't know how to shut off the nose when they need to. Is that help for figuring out how to create boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of like how when you say boundaries, that's a vast topic. So I guess when I first hear it, I think like relationships and boundaries with
But
people.
no, but I mean like a boundary, like you created a boundary with your nose in the hospital. you figured out how to shut that off and create that boundary.
Yes.
Are there ways to create boundaries?
Oh, sure. Like with other things, like say, like what would be an example that you're thinking of?
I mean, like say I hear every noise
Mm,
imaginable everywhere, and that drives me. I mean, that's really disruptive to my life. Is there a way to for someone to learn to 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 maybe not the words and boundaries, but to be able to filter things
mhm.
sometimes, so it
Yeah,
becomes more manageable.
for sure. And that would be finding out again, that would be another like when did that first start that it became overactive? Because that sounds like it's a skill and a gift that you should be able to tune in, like tune into it when you want, but not be on all the time. And what that sounds like for me, my first thought would be to ask questions of that, of like if someone were sitting in front of me to tell me that, I would be asking them, um, how long do you think you've had this issue where it's this always on? And then, asking questions around the issue itself, like how does it bother you? What are the feelings you get? And when's the last time this happened for you? When that happened, what happened right before that? Where, and what happens to you when it, because sometimes people can get really angry with sounds. There is something called, I think it's how you pronounce it is misophonia, misophonia, phonia. And that is, I have that with certain sounds.
What's it called again?
It's like miso or misophonia, misophonia. And it's where people are really sensitive to sounds. And it may not be all sounds, but it might be like someone biting in an apple might just really set them off. Or crinkling in a tortilla chip bag, the crunchy, crinkly sound of that. Um, you know, or just, I remember, so for me as a kid, I remember being so sensitive to sound. My parents would be I'd go to bed earlier, my brother and I would go to bed earlier, and then, they would have the TV on, and it would be at a low murmur,
Uh,
and it would keep me awake, so I'd have to get a fan to drown out that noise, and then I would still sometimes hear it, like if they were watching a movie and my dad would turn it up louder, and I'd have to like yell downstairs to ask for them to turn it down because it was just keeping me wide awake. So yeah, can you soften those things now? So if you're feeling like you're hearing everything right now and you're aware of it right now, yes, there are ways to do it. It's a matter of it's like it's a puzzle, really, is what it is. We just have to ask questions to find out, where it came from, what it's connected to, and sometimes in the processes of the work that I do, we unlink those connections so they're not bothering people anymore. But it doesn't mean. So I just want to clarify, though, that doesn't mean that you lose the ability to tune in and be that like well developed in your hearing. It's still there. It's always going to be there. It's a matter of then learning how to tune into it and not having the fear that it's going to take over again. Does that make sense?
yeah, that sounds like it could be really powerful for someone who's suffering in that way.
Yeah, for
Sounds
sure.
like you you also have you also work with veterans, and you have a is it a nonprofit with
Yes.
cool
Yeah,
tell me a little about that.
sure. So the nonprofit is called Warrior Path Home, and it's about bringing our warriors all the way home. And that's a phrase that veterans know, that they've gone overseas to fight in a war. They come home physically, but sometimes some of them are overseas and they haven't come all the way back. They're still mentally there, fighting the war, fighting a battle in their mind. And as you know, a lot of veterans come back with PTSD to some degree.
um, what was I going to ask about PTSD? I, so if someone's suffering from PTSD, are the things to do? I mean, in a way, it sounds like we were just talking about turning off, being able to turn turn something on when we want to remember, but turning it off when it's disruptive. But are there ways of dealing with that and creating a more comfortable relationship with PTSD?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of the veterans that I work with, it's a lot of emotional type work, spiritual, emotional, and some physical too. But as far as the emotional goes, and it's a lot of PTSD, and some of it's even not even from related to military life. It has to do with before they were in the military. Sometimes it just the military exacerbated where they are. So yeah, so when we were talking about the sound, for example, and how we can lessen the sound and the connection. Like sometimes people can get really angry with a sound, and we can disconnect that link if we can find it. Now, like people with PTSD, they usually have some links in their brain that they may not even know are linked. Like they may know, some people may know where their PTSD comes from, some people may not. Some people may guess it. Regardless, if they're having the experience, it's a real experience inside for them. And people, it's important for people to know there is a real strong mind body connection, and everybody has it. So if you are triggered, it doesn't have to be a conscious trigger that gets you. It could be a subconscious trigger that you weren't even aware of. So it could be a smell. It could be the scent of gunpowder. It could be a train whistle in the distance that was going off at the same time something bad happened. And that
Mm,
whistle sound can happen and you're not
mm.
even aware of it. It's so benign, but that whistle can just bring it all back. And then all of that stuff, that mind body connection is so connected, it'll bring it back. And so then there's real feelings, there's real emotions, the neuropeptides start flooding the system. And then you're riding the wave of this emotional experience. Yeah, we can find those links and do something with them in the beginning, lessen it, change it, take it away. I don't know. I don't like to always say we remove it or we let it go completely because, especially with people who've been dealing with PTSD for so long, it's unbelievable to them that they're going to ever let it go. So we
But
want to soften the reaction or soften the response, but there is hope to let it go completely, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
so the process, the healing journey involves softening the response, but there is hope that at the end there might be a ability to completely let go of that, but that's not a guaranteed thing, huh?
Oh, I don't know that I don't want to say I don't like to say anything is 100% guarantee. You know why?
Yeah.
Because everyone has their own free will. And remember what we were talking about early on about people and their attachments to the chocolate cake and how they might have a real good reason to keep the problem. So sometimes there's a really big, and some people might not like this word, but there can be a big payoff to keeping a problem or a benefit. Even though on the surface it's like, Jill, I hate this PTSD struggle. But when you really get down into it, there are sometimes people have good reasons to keep it. Like maybe it keeps them from working 40 hours a week. Maybe it keeps them. So that's not a benefit. They might think, well, there's like pros and cons to it, and it's all different for everyone. But there's almost always a good reason, along with all the long list of bad reasons to keep a problem. There's always at least one good one that's usually driving the train or the bus, I say, and that's the one that we want to find and turn it around.
You mentioned a provocative question earlier that gets at those underlying reasons to keep something around. What was that question again?
Oh, yeah. So, like, what's a good reason to keep the problem?
What's a good reason to keep the problem? That's such a good question.
Mhm. Yeah, another one that because sometimes people can't answer that one, so then I'll turn it around, and I'll ask this one, which is, what bad thing happens when you let it go?
What bad thing are you afraid of happening when you let a problem go?
And that's a kind of that's a provocative question because it really gets your brain to go, well, wait a minute. Well, nothing bad happens. But think about it. What if it does? What could that be? And it's different for everyone because usually what's happening in our brain, our subconscious mind is trying to keep us safe. Always trying to keep us safe. It wants us to stay safe. It's in survival mode. And even though on the conscious level, as we're thinking about it logically, we're thinking, I don't want this problem anymore. This isn't serving me. But there's another part of you inside that knows when the program was, we'll call it written, and it's not needed anymore. It was useful back then, whenever that was, but it's not useful anymore. Right? So eating the chocolate cake, not really useful. I mean, it's good for a few taste buds excitement, right? Like I like to taste that chocolate. It's good. It's sweet. Yeah, that's fun. But, if you're having a problem with eating a whole chocolate cake uncontrollably and you don't have willpower to stop, well, it might be a problem. And there probably is something, underneath it.
Probably something what?
Probably something underneath it. Something deeper than just the chocolate cake problem, right?
Um, so if someone feels that the mind, body, and spirit, if they're listening to this and they feel out of alignment in those areas, or that those areas are struggling with each other, what might be a good place for them to start?
So you're asking when they have like a mind body connection that's they're struggling with?
Yeah. If they feel they are kind of at war with each other or with themselves and they want more harmony, where might they start?
Well, so starting would be just obviously having awareness. You want to start with the awareness that there's something bothering you. So the main thing I would say when someone has a struggle, it's like A, how do you know you have the problem? B, how is this impacting my life right now? And what do I want instead? And am I willing to do something about it? Usually people will say, yeah, I'm willing to do something about it. But I say, and when you start to work on it, sometimes it can be challenging because there's a lot of inner work that goes on around um, changing who you are. If you've been a certain way for many years in your life, there's some undoing that happens, and it's a glorious thing to get on the flip side of that. But it does take some fortitude within and some stick to itiveness, I guess you could say, that you have to have a big why, I guess, as to why you want it. I really want to let this go so I can what? What's the reason you want to let it go? So you can feel better, so you can have inner peace, inner calm, so you can sleep at night, so you can have a better relationship with your spouse or your kids. Usually those are like good places to start. And then if you're at a place where you're at a plateau, you've tried some things on your own, or you're just ready to work with somebody, like hire a coach or someone that knows, a practitioner that knows how to help you navigate bad memories, change them. That's one of the things that I do too, is the helping people change past memories that are the ones driving your emotional bus now. And so you can feel better in all ways. And really, some people get a little nervous or like, if I change all of that, who am I going to be? I don't even know who that is. I don't even know if that's possible. But the truth is, you will be you, only better. You will be yourself. You will be improved. You will be the new and improved you. And you will like yourself so much better. You will be so much happier. I mean, I can speak for myself and a lot of my clients too. We're just, you didn't know what was going to be on the other side. You were just like ready to like try it. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I never knew it could be so good because we were never there. So it's hard to even imagine sometimes. But once you get there, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome.
That's very inspiring. Very inspiring. So if people want to know more, how do they get in touch with you?
That is a great question. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, Jill Marie Haas. I'm on Facebook, Coach Jill Marie, or yeah, Coach Jill Marie Haas. I think I can't remember if I did my full name on there. I have to look. Oh no. And then right now, I have for anyone out there who has heard us talking about the highly sensitive person or HSP. If you think you're that, I have a summit going on right now that's free. And it is starting on the 19th of February. And you can register at globalhspsummit.com. Sign up for free.
Will you say that address one more time, please?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's global. So GLOBALHSP Summit, SUMMIT.com. And Mr. Jason Freeman has an interview on there with me. And it was a great
It was
conversation.
so fun being interviewed by you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a great conversation. And yeah, so everyone should tune in to see Jason. Let me see your air date. I don't have it handy. I should have had that handy.
Yeah,
But
I
we
didn't
can
know
put it
it
I can
too,
give it to you, and you can put it on on the podcast so people can know when to watch.
So I always I ask all my guests this last question. When I talk about doing my imperfect best, what I mean is I envision the best I want life to be for myself and what I want to contribute. And then as I go for it, imperfections tend to come up like spelling your name, HASS, tends to come up. And what I mean by doing my imperfect best is instead of quitting and say, oh, I just never spell names right, I learn from it. And in this case, luckily my assistant discovered the error and changed it and we move back forward towards the best. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
I think it means just really owning who I am and being authentically, unapologetically me. So even if that means I'm going to show emotion and someone may not like it, whether I'm crying because it makes them uncomfortable or I'm angry and it makes them uncomfortable or whatever it is, that I just own it and they can do whatever they want with it. So I think that's what it is for me. Because I will tell you, the reason I say that is I held back my emotions to always look like I was a certain way with people so that I wasn't disappointing anyone or anything like that. So yeah, I don't want to hold back. Like I've held back so long and I also wasn't being visible. So to me it's like getting out there and being seen no matter how I'm seen and just being okay with that, whether someone likes it or not.
And that gives so much freedom to you, but also to other people to get to experience who you actually are. So
Yeah,
that's very
exactly.
powerful.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Definitely.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on and having this awkwardly awesome podcast conversation with me.
It was a pleasure and it wasn't awkward at all. It was great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Oh wow. It's so inspiring how much there is that we can do to move forward in life, even when we think we're stuck with this or that about ourselves, or have this or that habit that's really not doing us any favors, and to really start to understand it in a new way and understand how we might be clinging to it with subconscious memories, or find some kind of subconscious benefit in it, and do something different. Wasn't Jill Marie Haas great? Thanks for tuning in. And tune in for another amazing guest next week. Until then, remember how awesome you are, and thanks for being you, and moving forward towards where you truly want in life.